Good afternoon. I'm professional sports handicapper Ross Benjamin. It's Tuesday, March the 31st, and I'm going to be going through a series of MLB futures odds as they apply to who will win each division. Before I get to my first division I'm going to cover, we're going through a terrible crisis right now. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected everyone in our country and globally in some way, shape, or form, some more than others. But again, folks, I'm not going to preach to you because you've heard enough on the national news and local news for a lifetime over the last couple of weeks. But in my lifetime, and I'm 62 years old, we've never encountered something like this. And this is serious, folks. So unless you need something essential like food or medication, don't go out of the house. You know, I've heard too many people over the last few weeks in my personal life, number one, which I've expressed my displeasure that they don't care if they get it. Only 3% of society who gets confirmed with it ends up dying, and most of those people are in their 70s and 80s. There's some truth to that, but it's not all true, as we've seen some younger deaths as well. The point is, that's your prerogative if you feel that way, but don't be selfish and irresponsible and give it to somebody else. And they in turn can give it to you, a grandmother, a grandfather, somebody's mother or father that's beloved, and you're responsible for their death. So I'm sure none of you want that on your plate. So think twice. Think more beyond just yourself, and be very cautious and adhere to what the guidelines are for this pandemic, Anyway, enough of that. We're going to be covering the NL East right now, the futures odds, and I'm going to go through each and every team real quickly as I can. Now, folks, I might be looking at my notes a little more than normal because there's a lot of ground to cover, and I might not be making the normal eye contact I normally do with you, so bear with me. I'm not in an ESPN studio. I'm recording and editing my own videos here and producing my own videos, so please keep that in mind. Let's start by saying this may be the most competitive division in baseball, and again, I'm referring to the National League East, as we see 4 teams with futures odds of plus 175 to plus 275. And then there's the lowly Miami Marlins at plus 15,000. That's correct, folks. Plus 15,000. In other words, if you put $10 on the Marlins right now to win the division, you're going to collect $1,500. I know that sounds enticing, but we'll get to that later. While that wouldn't be a very smart move, even at a small investment. Having said that, the favorite in the division right now is the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are currently plus 175 to win the NL East. And I love their top 3 hitters that they're going to have on this in their batting order this year for the most part. Unless something dramatically changes, we're looking at a top 3 of leadoff hitter Ronald Acuna, followed by Ozzie Albies and Freddie Freeman. And Acuna in the leadoff spot last year. How about 41 home runs, 107 RBIs, and he stole 37 bases. And then you got Ozzie Albies in the number 2 hole, 23-year-old. As a 22-year-old last year, he hit 295 with 24 homers, 86 RBIs, and he stole 15 bases. And then Freddie Freeman, the veteran who's been with Atlanta throughout his career, is coming off the best season of that career. Last year, 38 home runs, 121 RBIs, and a 395 on base percentage. That's absolutely terrific. And the Braves were able to pick up former St. Louis Cardinal and Miami Marlin Marcell Ozuna during the offseason via free agency, and he's going to provide some very good protection for Freddie Freeman in the order. Ozuna, the last 3 years with Miami and 2 seasons with St. Louis, has accounted for a combined 89 home runs and 301 RBIs. So an extra punch there in the Atlanta Braves lineup. The Braves will be a good offensive team. There's no 2 ways about it. As far as their pitching staff goes, I really like the youngster Mike Soroka. As a 21-year-old last year, 13-4 in 29 starts. And what was even more impressive to me is in 16 road starts, Soroka went 7-1 with a 1.55 ERA. You shouldn't be able to pitch that good in the major leagues on the road as a 21-year-old and be that dominant as Soroka was a year ago. So I look for him not to have the sophomore jinx. I think he'll be even better this year and improve upon his stats at home. It'll be tough to duplicate those stats on the road, but I think you're looking for a pitcher who's going to have another fine year and somebody to really build your pitching staff around in the future. Also, 26-year-old Max Fried, the right-hander, went 17-6 in 30 starts last year. Very encouraging as well. And the Braves will go with Mark Melancon as their closer. Last year with San Francisco and Atlanta, Melancon made 66 relief appearances and was 12 for 12 on his save opportunities. Next, we're going to look at the Washington Nationals, the defending world champions. Right now are at odds of plus 250. And, no team has repeated as world champions in Major League Baseball since the Yankees have done it in 2000. That's how tough it's been. It'll be 20 years going into this World Series. A team has gone back-to-back winning the World Series, and it's going to be a tough task for Washington going into this year. Anyway, they can build their foundation, around a very good young player as well as Juan Soto as a 20-year-old last year. How about 34 home runs and 110 RBIs? And that includes an additional 5 home runs and 14 RBIs during the postseason. The World Series, he hit .333. What a very good young player for Washington, and I think he's going to be a future Hall of Famer if things continue along those directions. Starlin Castro was a nice offseason acquisition via free agency. The former Miami Marlin last year on a god-awful team in Miami had 22 home runs and 86 RBIs. He'll have a lot more protection around him, and I look for Castro to have a very productive year in Washington. The pitching staff, it doesn't get much better than the top two in the rotation with Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg. These two guys were just absolutely phenomenal in the postseason last year and were instrumental in the Nationals winning their first ever franchise World Series and first ever franchise World Series, I should say. And Scherzer 3-0 in the postseason in 5 starts with a 2.40 ERA and a microscopic 0.63 WHIP, while Strasburg was 5-0 in the postseason, and that was in 5 starts, and he posted a dominating 1.98 ERA while doing so. Their closer will once again be Sean Doolittle, the unorthodox right-hander. He had a so-so regular season, even though 29 out of 35 on his save opportunities. His ERA isn't where you'd like it to be as a closer. However, during the postseason, he was magnificent, and 9 relief appearances, a 1.74 ERA, and a 0.68 WHIP. Next, the New York Mets. Yeah, the New York Mets, who went 86-76 a season ago, yet that was disappointing. They had much higher expectations. As a result of that, they fired former manager Mickey Callaway right after the regular season ended. They quickly hired former Met and Houston Astro, Pittsburgh Pirate, and I don't know who else I'm missing, Carlos Beltran, who just retired from baseball as a player recently. However, Beltran had to resign just prior to spring training beginning, and then, it was halted afterward. But for a while there, we did have spring training in baseball. I know that seems like a distant memory. Anyway, Beltran, he resigned under pressure after being found as one of the culprits in the Houston cheating scandal in 2018 that also resulted in former Houston coach and now Boston manager Joey Cora losing his job as well. So Anyway, let's get to the Mets, the meat and potatoes of the Mets. By the way, it's going to be Luis Rojas as their manager. I almost forgot to mention that with all the merry-go-round type of events going around the Mets managerial position. But Rojas was last year the quality control coach for the Mets, and he's been in the Mets farm system in recent years, managing their minor league clubs. Jeff McNeil, what a nice young player that came out of nowhere for the Mets last year. In the leadoff spot, he hit .318 with 23 homers and 73 RBIs. Then you have Michael Conforto, 27 years old, still young by Major League Baseball standards, and he's coming off a career year which saw him hit 33 home runs and knock in 92 runs. Then you have National League Rookie of the Year, Pete Alonso. Nobody saw this coming, as Alonso in his rookie year hit 53 home runs while driving in 120 runs as well. Also, take a look at the 23-year-old shortstop in the New York Mets. I should say 24 now, but as a 23-year-old last year, Ahmad Rosario, their shortstop, 15 home runs, 72 RBIs, and he swiped 19 bases. And then the pitching staff, highlighted by 2019 Cy Young Award winner in the National League, Jacob deGrom. Also a nice off-season acquisition as they picked up veteran right-hander Rick Porcello. Over 11 years in Major League Baseball, Porcello has started 27 or more games on each occasion, and on most instances has been very productive. 64 and 40 in his career, over 131 starts. Not only durable, but a solid right-hander to add to the rotation. Next, we look at the Philadelphia Phillies, plus 325. Off a disappointing year. A lot was expected in Philadelphia. They got off to a pretty decent start, but the end of the year on a downslope, and it resulted in just a 81 and 81 record. A bright spot was Bryce Harper in his first year with the Phillies. Even though he caught a lot of flack early in the process, he ended the year with 35 home runs and 114 RBIs. And he's going to have a similar or better year than that for Philly to contend in the NL East. In my opinion, nice free agent pickup in the offseason with former New York Yankee Didi Gregorius. Gregorius' season with the Yankees last year was cut short. He only played in 81 games, but during those 81 games, how about 16 home runs and 61 RBIs? Folks, that equates to over a 162-game season as a 32 home runs and 122 RBI year. We know that he's not going to play 162 games. My point being, Didi Gregorius is a nice addition to the Phillies lineup, and I'm certainly think that he'll be right there in the middle of the lineup with Bryce Harper. Their pitching staff, I really like young right-hander Aaron Nola. Nola 29 and 13 over the last two seasons with a very respectable 3.10 ERA. And they also picked up Zach Wheeler, the former New York Mets right-hander, in the offseason. Wheeler, we hear a lot of stuff about his upside, and, I'm still waiting for that breakout year. Maybe it's this year. Over the course of his career with the Mets, 126 starts, 44 and 38 with a pretty average 3.77 ERA. I know he's highly thought of, and let's see, maybe a change of environment will do him a lot of good in Philadelphia. Their closer is an underrated one at that, Hector Neris. How about over the last three seasons, Neris has closed 65 of 77 save opportunities. That's 84.4% conversion rate. That's awfully darn good, folks. So the Phillies' closing role is certainly in good hands. Then you have the Miami Marlins. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Marlins, and I have nothing positive to really say. All due respect to a lot of young players on that roster. However, ever since you had Derek Jeter-led ownership group take over, their front office has been stagnant in trying to improve this team. You look at the last 2 years, 57 and 105 last year, 63 and 98 2 years ago. And the big question mark this year is Miami going to lose 100 games or more again? I would certainly lean toward that direction. My point being is not to cut down the Marlins, but at odds of plus 15,000, those are justified. And I know a lot of you bettors out there are going, you know what, I'm going to take a shot at them. $10 to win 1,500. Well, let me say this. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. You could do a lot better things with the $10 than to donate to the sports books on a futures pick on the Miami Marlins. So stay away, folks. Don't be stupid. The Marlins, again, like I said, the question is, are they going to go? Are they going to lose 100 games or more? I certainly think so. Let's recap everything. I'm going to eliminate Miami as a possible selection. I'm not crazy about the Philadelphia starting pitching rotation beyond Aaron Nola. The Washington Nationals, very interesting, and I don't want to confuse you when I give you my quick synopsis here on how I'm going to operate with, or my strategy would be for Washington in 2020. I don't think there's a lot of value in taking the Nationals at plus 250 to win the NL East, especially in a division that should be very closely contested and may very well come down to a 3 or 4 team race. I do think if you wait about halfway through the year that you'll get a lot better value on Washington winning the World Series like they did a season ago, even though it's tough to repeat. My point being is that I think there'll be a lot better betting value halfway through the year or so at World Series odds, probably somewhere between 6 and 10 to 1, as opposed to plus 250 to win the division with the whole season to play. I do like Atlanta's batting order. They're going to score a lot of runs. I alluded to that before. They're probably going to be one of the more exciting teams to watch in the league. Good combination of young players, speed, power, right through the lineup. But I do not like their overall pitching staff beyond their starter, Mike Soroka. I think that Max Fried, he did go 17-6 a year ago, but I think he was a bit fortunate because he did receive a lot of run support. His ERA was over 4. I'm not crazy about their starting pitching staff. I'm not crazy about their bullpen. I think you're going to see a lot of high-scoring Atlanta games this year, so keep an eye on that if you get a decent total on one of their games. They might not be a bad over bet, especially early in the season. I do like the New York Mets, folks. They got a good young nucleus that I covered with you before. If Yoenis Cespedes comes back healthy and is able to produce at least average numbers for them, he poses a threat in the middle of the lineup. I know they suffered a big loss last week as Noah Syndergaard went through Tommy John surgery, and he'll be out for 12 to 18 months. That's certainly a big loss for the Mets starting pitching staff. But like I alluded to, with Jacob deGrom at the top of the rotation, a nice pickup with Rick Porcello, and then you round out the remainder of their starting rotation with Marcus Stroman, the former Toronto Blue Jay, who was picked up by the Mets last year, young left-hander and Steven Matz, veteran right-hander and Michael Wacha. That has the makings of a really good starting pitching rotation. And then you get their closer, Edwin Diaz, who came over via free agency after being a member of the Seattle Mariners. And Diaz had an absolute horrible season in New York. It happens to a lot of young pitchers. They come over to New York either with the Yankees or Mets via trade or free agency, and then they get under those big bright lights of the New York media, and they just don't live up to expectations and succumb to pressure. However, I think Diaz, if he can go anywhere, somewhere between how bad he was last year and how great he was in 2018, that's going to be a big help for the Mets, and I think that will occur. Reminding you, back in 2018, this is a closer in Edwin Diaz that had 57 saves and recorded a 196 ERA and 079 WHIP by doing so. I like the New York Mets to win the NL East this year. I'm going to take a shot with them at odds of plus 275. Until the next time, our next video will be sometime this week. We're going to be reviewing and giving a pick out on another Major League Baseball division, futures odds. Stay safe, folks. Be careful. Stay inside. Don't go out unless you have to. And God bless each and every one of you.